Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Shannon Margaret B, and I'm so happy to have you here. This is such an exciting video. This is my top 10 reads of 2025. I luckily had the best reading year. I feel like I found so many new favorites, so many new favorite authors, and I feel like I really went outside my comfort zone on some books. I really got to read into a ton of different genres, and I feel like I have like new appreciation for reading after this year, just because I feel like it was with me through so many ups and downs, and I got to just see such a wild variety of characters and stories and writing this year. And I had a really great reading year, like the best year I've had in a long time for reading. I have two random, like, honorable mentions, but they're kind of like random categories that I thought of. So the first honorable mention will be for the weirdest book I read this year. And this book is not on the top 10, but honestly, probably my top 20 of the year, and that is Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. This book is so strange, so weird. It is so tiny. It packs a punch in this little tiny book. It's the start of the Southern Reach trilogy. So this trilogy is about an unknown area called Area X, and they send in different expedition groups, and each expedition group, most of them die. That's not a spoiler. It happens right in the beginning. But each expedition group, the next group learns something, some minuscule amount of information from the group before them. And so in Annihilation, the first book, you are following the 12th expedition group and their journey into Area X. It's a weird book. It's really crazy and mind-bending and really tests your imagination. This book is so tiny. It's definitely like a one-sitting book, and it just is so fun. It really transports you into this weird, wacky area, and you honestly just have no idea like what's real and what's not, what's actually there, and what's in the character's imagination. A fun book, and definitely by far the weirdest one I read this year. The next little like honorable mention category would be for my favorite author of the year, and I don't know if this is a surprise to anybody because I feel like I've talked about her in so many of my vlogs, but that is Sarah Pearse. I did a full reading vlog of reading Sarah Pearse's books. She has 3 books, so she has The Sanatorium, The Retreat, and then she also has the book The Wild. These two I gave 5 stars to, and The Wild I don't totally remember my rating, but all of these books are technically kind of a trilogy, and they follow like the same detective throughout each story. I think I fell in love with Sarah Pearse as an author just because she does full big cast books so well, and it's really fun, and especially in a thriller, it gives you a lot of room to play with the characters, and you can kill off more people, and you could create more relationships and have more overlap and more twists when you have such a large cast. And I think she takes on her cast in such like an eloquent way that it's not confusing, it's easy to follow, but they're still just as surprising, and the payoffs are great in her books. I will say The Wild I wasn't as crazy about. However, she does have a 4th book coming out. These can be read as standalones. However, part of the Sanatorium is kind of referenced, maybe a little spoiled in The Retreat, which is the second one. So if you are going to explore her as an author, I would recommend reading them in order of Sanatorium, Retreat, and then The Wild. But yes, definitely my favorite author for the year. I loved my experience with these books so much. I had so much fun in the reading blog that I did for these, so can't recommend her more. And maybe one of these will be in the top 10. Let's see. Coming in at number 10 is Leave the World Behind by Rumaan Alam. I read this in a 24-hour reading challenge, I think, and this was the best start to a 24-hour reading challenge. This book is about a family that goes out to kind of like an Airbnb in the middle of nowhere. They kind of want to disconnect and have family time, and the couple wants to reconnect and just leave the world behind. And that's the name of like the Airbnb. They're having a relaxing time, and one day 2 people come and knock on their door and say, listen, this is our house. We had to escape. These crazy things are going on in the world. We don't know what's happening. Like, there's power outages. We don't know what's happening. Subways are stuck in the city. Trains are down. Everything is kind of gone dark. The people staying in the Airbnb have to decide, like, should we let these people stay with us? And like, is the world actually ending? Because things aren't really changing for them, because they just like don't really know, because they're just out on their own in the middle of nowhere. So it is a fun, creepy, suspenseful read. It's one of those books that kind of feels like nothing happens and you're reading and you're like, this isn't important, this isn't important. And then as the book goes on, you're like, everything is important. Definitely a great book to do some research on Reddit after you read it, because people have like crazy theories on this book. It plays with your mind. It makes you think of like, what would I do if I was in that situation? I wouldn't call it sci-fi. I would say it's more just like an atmospheric, creepy, suspenseful read. Coming in at number 9 is The Family Game by Catherine Steadman. This is about a girl named Harriet, and she is newly engaged to this man who's kind of well off, and he has a very interesting family. And she is invited one day to go to their family home, and take part in these weird, strange games. And she kind of is trying to figure out what the heck is going on with this creepy family and like what is she marrying into. It's a really quick, fun thriller and definitely my favorite of Catherine Steadman's. I have a vlog where I actually read her whole backlist, and that was really fun to just see like how an author can come up with such a wildly different story than her other books. Try to figure out what is wrong with this family, or is anything wrong, or are they just like rich and well off and everything's fine. A side note with this book, the audiobook is fantastic. There is a recorded tape element to this book, and Harriet stumbles upon these tapes, and the recorded tapes in the audiobook are so like spine tingling and like freaky, and like you get like background noise, like if someone's on a highway you hear the noise in the audiobook. So it's a really like immersive audiobook, but I also did enjoy reading it tangibly. Number 8 is One Golden Summer by Carly Fortune. I'm so glad to have a little romance on this list. This book is technically like a sequel slash companion to Every Summer After. I would recommend reading Every Summer After first. The relationship is kind of spoiled in One Golden Summer that takes place in Every Summer After. But in Every Summer After, we follow the Florek boys. So this one follows Sam, follows Charlie. So we're following Alice and Charlie in One Golden Summer. Alice had stayed at the lake one summer with her grandma, and she had seen these boys out on the water and took like this photograph, which becomes kind of the start to her love of photography. And little does she know that the Florek boys are who are in that photograph. So she goes back years later to be with her grandmother, and she runs into Charlie Florek. And she goes to the lake and she's like, I don't want a relationship. And Charlie doesn't want a relationship either. He just wants to like work on himself. It's a really sweet friendship story to follow between Alice and Charlie and just their summer together. And I swear, like, I did not want this book to end. I was so invested. Definitely a really great summer read. Coming in at number 7 is Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson. This is like a beautiful, epic family story. It has so much culture infused into it, and your heartstrings are definitely pulled in this book, and the journey of two children trying to figure out their mother's past. So their mother passes and leaves behind a voice recording letting them know pretty much everything that happened in the mother's past, and you're flashing back between Byron and Benny, the two children, and then also the mother Eleanor and her childhood and growing up, and how Byron and Benny came to be and why their lives became what they were. I thought it was a really like all-encompassing, beautiful like family story. The relationships and like the sibling relationship and the relationship with the mother were just so interesting to read. It's such a beautiful story, and it covers so much culture as well. Like I believe they talk about like the Chinese diaspora. It's a lot of Caribbean culture that's in here, and I feel like things that you don't normally get to read about, and even historical fiction. So it was really interesting to see it represented in the story. It felt very emotional for me. I feel like you feel so many emotions when you're reading this, and you're so invested in the children's lives, and like you want to be there to comfort them as they're learning all of these things about their mother. And I just like love when books make you feel like that. And at number 6 is All These Dangerous Things by Stacy Willingham. This book is like a psychological thriller. It really plays with your mind. It follows a woman whose son goes missing from his crib one night, and she like can't sleep. She has insomnia, so she's kind of, you don't know if you can trust her or not. And then one day she agrees to be interviewed by a true crime podcaster, and he tries to open up the case and interview more people and see if there's anything that was left unturned. It covers a lot about like postpartum. It covers just motherhood in general, and I think like some really important themes that I hadn't seen before in books. Just as twisty, just as suspenseful, and like I was dying to know like what happened to her son. Coming in at number 5 is Funny Story by Emily Henry. This year I had fun with Emily Henry. I think I read 4 or 5 of her books, and this was by far my favorite. This book follows Daphne and Miles, and Daphne and Miles are both dating other people, but those other people dump them to be together, and Daphne has nowhere to live because she moved states just to be with her fiance, who has now dumped her, and Miles is also newly single and needs a roommate, so they decide to live together for the time being just to figure things out. And it's just a really cute story. It's nothing like I ever read before with romance. So you have two people who are going through breakups and mourning it. And there's even a scene like towards the beginning where they're both like playing music or watching sad movies. And it's just funny that like they find the comfort within each other, but they're also both just trying to figure out like, do they still love their exes and what's going on in their heads and why their relationships end? And then why did their people leave them for each other? So definitely a really fun story. And at number 4 is a recent read towards the end of the year, and that is Murder in the Family by Kara Hunter. This book is obviously one of my favorite thrillers of the year. It's so suspenseful. It's such a good mystery. This follows the case of Luke Ryder, who 20 years prior is murdered and everyone is trying to figure out what happened to him. The case kind of went unsolved and it was big in the media when it first happened, but then it kind of tapered out. And 20 years later, a Netflix film crew comes in to do a documentary on it. So they're re-interviewing everyone. They're bringing in their own experts, their own police to completely reopen the case and see if there was anything left behind that they could find. And this book is just so cool because it's written as just a transcript of their conversations, and it's written as like the plans for the episodes. And then you get like some emails, you get a lot of diagrams, so you really do feel like you're like a sleuth along like with the detectives and the people creating the show. And then you're also getting like some information from the family and then their friends, and like it is just so fun. It is so fun. It feels like if you really think hard, like maybe you could figure it out. I was so shocked and like so thrilled and just had the best time with this book. It was such a fun experience reading this. And I definitely want to give another one of Kara Hunter's books a try. Number 3 is The Retreat by Sarah Pearse. So this only makes complete sense that she's my favorite author of the year, and her book is my third most favorite of the year. This book is so amazing. Like I said in the beginning, she does full cast characters so well. So we're still with Detective Ellen Warner, and she goes out to this luxury resort, and on this luxury resort, people just keep dying. It's very like White Lotus vibes. It's very fun. This group of friends, slowly, everyone just starts dying and no one knows what is happening or why these people are targeted. There's so many mysteries that involve the actual resort island that everybody's on. It's such a fun read. I feel like I say that about every book, but this was really fun to read, really shocking. I loved the twist in this book. And I feel like I just think about this book all the time because I just liked it so much. And maybe I will do a reread of it because that's just how much I like it. And I desperately need Sarah Pearse's 4th book to come out like as soon as possible. Number 2 is The Winners by Frederick Bachman. This book is an epic journey. It is huge, but it doesn't feel like it's that long, and it is the conclusion to the Beartown trilogy. So there's Beartown, Us Against You, and then there's The Winners. I do think these books can all be read standalone, but you really get like every payoff possible if you do read them in order. And I actually did reread these two very closely to reading The Winners, so I feel like I was very much still in the world of Beartown. So this trilogy is about Beartown, and when there is an assault on the hockey coach's daughter, it creates such a big divide in this town. And I would say even that event in Beartown like radiates through the whole trilogy, and you see a lot of the lines that were drawn early on are still talked about, and people still feel so strongly about the ethics and things that went on in Beartown during that time. This book, being called The Winners, is mainly themed with the rivalry between neighboring town heads. So hockey is a huge theme throughout the trilogy, and the hockey team is like the lifeblood of these towns. So finally seeing the rivalry really come to a head is really interesting. Following so many characters, and although it's long, I tabbed whenever something like important happened or like a big event happened. And truthfully, when I was building my top 10 and trying to remember what all these books were about and everything, I like got emotional just thinking about the conclusion of this book because it is just so heart-wrenching. And I think being so invested, I think it being a trilogy, you really can get so invested. And I like how they bring back characters who maybe weren't in the second one. You're following a lot of the same characters, and there are new characters thrown in too. So you still feel like you're getting a fresh perspective of Beartown, even though you've been in the world for 3 books. I really want to recommend this book just because it looks so long, but it's really so quick. It flies by. I was so upset when it was over that like I didn't even take more time with it because I feel like I was reading it so fast. I wanted to know so badly what was happening at the end. I just love Frederick Bachman's writing, and I mean the synopsis literally starts with a storm, a death, and 2 funerals on the same day. So good. Also, this book is just like beautiful, so we can have a moment for that in of itself. But yes, highly recommend this, highly recommend the trilogy. And I'm very sad that the story of Beartown is over, but I hope I'll reread it one day. My number 1 book of 2025 is All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. This book follows Marie Laure and Warner. So Marie Laure lives in Paris, and when she's 6, she goes blind. So her father really tries to help her and makes like a miniature model of the city so that she always knows where she's going and like she can venture out on her own. and her father works at the Museum of Natural History, and a very precious jewel goes missing. So the family is kind of followed for years, even though no one really knows if they have this jewel or not. And then on the flip side, you're following Warner, who is an orphan boy, and he grows up and he's very smart, take apart and put together a radio quickly. And since he is so intelligent, he ends up getting into like this academy for boys who are trying to help gain intelligence in the war. So this is a World War II historical fiction story. The characters in this book are just so rich, and you're following both of their pretty much their entire lives throughout the whole book. And I think I talked about this in my video when I reviewed this book, but I really appreciated in this story learning how the war affects people afterwards, because a lot of historical fiction is just like ends and you're just like left to assume what happens. But I think getting like that other perspective of life did go on, and these people had to grapple with the things they did or the decisions they made or the turmoil they had to go through during the war and still live on somehow. And that was like something that really stuck with me about this book. And also, just like I said, the characters were just written so beautifully. I loved Anthony Doerr's writing. It was just so eloquent and perfect. I also really liked the friendship that Warner had with one of the other people in the academy. I thought it was really sweet to see like the male friendship throughout the book. And then also to see Maury Lore's relationship with her father. And then she goes to live with her uncle during the war to stay safe, and that relationship as well, and her living in like this crazy kind of castle on the water. So this book is just so fantastic. If you like historical fiction, even if you don't, I think you would really, really enjoy this book. And I know it's just like a classic and it's been around forever, but I'm so glad that I got to experience it this year. So that was my top 10 for 2025. Let me know if you've read any of these, if any of these are your all-time favorites, or any that you think I might like that are similar to these. But I'm so excited to see what kind of books I get to read in 2026. Well, I'll see you soon in another video, but thank you so much for watching. Bye!